Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the EFL Magazine Business Podcast. Today's guest is Nicola Prentis. Nicola started off in ELT as a teacher in the Czech Republic, Turkey, Australia, Spain and Thailand. She eventually settled in Spain and got into materials writing and selling ideas to magazines. After a brief period of speaking at conferences, she realized she wasn't going to earn any more from writing than she had from teaching. At the same time, she began wondering what she could do with her savings, carefully scrimped over 20 years. This answer led her into teaching herself about investing from a starting point of utter cluelessness. This was quickly followed by the realization that many people in ELT had the same lack of knowledge about investing, and that all her years of teaching and creating educational materials were about to come in handy. And the result is the chilled investor. So more about that in the podcast, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey everyone, buckle up for a new episode of the EFL Magazine Business Podcast, the one and only podcast made to help you launch your business or take your existing business to a level of success you could never have imagined. Whether you're a school owner, freelancer, publisher, or other entrepreneur, you're sure to pick up lots of actionable advice when you listen to the EFL Magazine Business Podcast. Remember to visit eflmagazine.com for great articles and features. Without further ado, here's your host, the founder of EFL Magazine, Philip Pound.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to the latest episode of the EFL Magazine Business Podcast. And today I have founder, writer, communicator, teacher, Nicola Prentis. Good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon from me.
And Nicola, we're going to talk a little bit about your latest project, which is The Chilled Investor. And that's the www.thechilledinvestor, all one word. And if that is a word, I don't know. You can tell me, Nicola. You're the writer.
There's no article in there.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
made a grammar mistake. It's just Chilled Investor.
Gotcha. Okay. www.chilledinvestor.com. So you took the advice of what's in what's the movie about Mark Zuckerberg and
there's two.
Yeah, the one that's almost completely fictional. That he complained about. Was it the social?
The social network.
The social network. That's the one. And he gets the advice to not call it the Facebook, but Facebook.
Yeah. I did actually buy the domain name for the Chilled Investor as well, but I wanted it to be the shortest one to type.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So you Chilled Investor, but that we'll come on to that in a little bit. But tell me a little bit about your background, Nicola. We've known each other. Well, this is the first time we've actually met, but for quite a number of years, I think, since I founded the magazine. I think I contacted you maybe about 7-8 years ago, and you said to me at the time it would be difficult to start a magazine because it would be hard to get people to contribute to the magazine. But fortunately, that's not been the case. I've had a lot of contributors over the years. But tell me about your background in ELT, how you got into teaching and writing.
I graduated from philosophy and therefore had absolutely no idea what I was supposed to do in the real world. And I wasted a couple of years temping at home. And then a friend signed up for the TEFL course, and I just thought, I have to do something. I'll do that. And then I kind of fell in love with it, realized that I could travel all over the place, did that. I was just bouncing around, anywhere that took my fancy. I went and lived there. I would go on holiday somewhere and then be like, right, I've got to go and live there. I can't just come on holiday here. So I did that for quite a while. And then I just fell into writing really through graded readers, because I used to use graded readers a lot. And one day I just realized, people must write those. So I wrote one and then bothered a publisher until they decided to take it.
Oh, okay. So that was your background was in philosophy originally. I think, from a lot more about philosophy, obviously, than I do. But from reading philosophers, one thing that really struck me as a common denominator is most of them came from rich families, and they had trust funds, didn't they? They had time to sit down and think, uh, unlike other
Yeah.
people of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, but so did all the biologists,
Oh, really?
and the natural scientists. Yeah, because only, like you say, everybody else was working to feed themselves, and only the people that had money could kind of they had the leisure to ask questions and then find the answers.
That's true, isn't it? Because Darwin came, wasn't he, with the Wedgworth family, wasn't he? The pottery makers. I think his family, they're somehow connected, and so yeah, that's true, isn't it? I mean, it was a gentleman's hobby. I'm not being sexist
Yes.
there, but those were the times, wasn't it? And I think Boyle as well, wasn't he? Was a count. But yeah, actually, moving on, we could get sidetracked there. Tell me about graded readers. Why graded readers? What took you? Was it reading Ladybird books when you were young, and you said I could do the
I
same?
did.
We
I
all
did read
did,
those.
yeah.
I just because a lot of them are adaptations, and that wasn't really the thing that I was so interested in, although they were what I used in class, and students loved them. But I just kind of realized you can write a novel, a full-length novel, and it will take you, I don't know, a year, and it'll be 80,000 words or something like that, and then you'll never get it published. Or you can turn that idea into a much shorter thing, and it will get published. And not only will it get published, it's going to get read by hundreds, if not thousands, of people around the world. And it's not as glamorous, but I don't think most writers are in it for the glamour. They just want to be read. They want their
Mm.
stories to matter. And so that was the thing that kept me going back. And it was always, I got into it kind of late. So I was never, it wasn't like you could get commissioned by a publisher to write 10 stories. You would go through the laborious process of getting one book accepted, and then everybody would leave or close the department or whatever would happen. And you were just there trying to flog your next book to whichever publisher was left. And I would just, email them in rounds, going, I've got this, is anybody interested? And sometimes it would be, half a year or later when you would actually get somebody to make a decision. And I did have one where I ended up with two people at the same time who wanted it, which in, publishing terms should be really exciting. It should drive the price up. It didn't. I took the better offer, and the other one was quite surprised that I had approached it that way. But, I've never made big money from that. But I always retained the rights. So if I want to turn those into 80,000 word novels or screenplays, I can. I always made sure that I got that, because I certainly wasn't getting paid well enough to give up all my rights to my story that I invented. There's no way I was handing. I care about my characters in the little world that I made for them.
So tell me, for people who don't know much about commissioning, writing process, how the contracts look. They have some kind of boilerplate contract, but you decided to renegotiate, or are there different terms you can agree to?
Yeah.
How does that work?
I would write to them and say, look, I want the rights to this. I want, the exploitation rights, basically. And a lot of the time they wouldn't know what I was talking about. Sometimes a publisher would say, because you're usually talking to the editor, it's the legal department who need to advise on that stuff. And the editor doesn't really want to have to get into the weeds with you, and they may or may not pass it on, but before they do that, they might well give you their opinion, which is often completely inaccurate, and they'll say, oh well, I think you've got those anyway. And I would say, no, but I want it written down in the contract. And so what I started doing was actually just, I'm not a lawyer and I never consulted a lawyer, but I would just send them a sentence that said what I wanted it to say. And I just sort of thought, well, they don't really know what they're talking about and they don't really care. So I will just put this text in. And then if it was ever to go to court because they sued me, then I suppose that I would, have to hope that my text was legally binding. But I just thought, if I ever did turn a graded reader into a novel that was then successful enough that they wanted a piece of it, I'd be doing so well that I might not mind. Which is wrong. It's very faulty thinking. You need to cover yourself legally first. But, ultimately it would be good for their sales of their book if I did something else with it. And I haven't yet, but I need more time for my own writing, and hopefully I will have it now or soon.
Okay, great. So I think you did very well, because a lot of people go into these contracts blind. They take people's word for it, and then things can whether it's 5 years late, 5 years later, or a dozen years, these things can turn around, can't they? And I've seen recent cases. What was it with the Stairway to Heaven, wasn't it? And I think the Down Under song as well. So, it's
Really?
never, yeah, I think there was a riff taken from a traditional Australian song and they sued them. Like, that was an 80s song, wasn't it? So they sued them, I don't know, about 5 years ago. So, yeah, it can come back to bite you. So, but for you, I think, yeah, and I hope so, you're well covered. But I wanted to get into the part about just writing, your graded reader rather than the long form, and now of course you can change it into the long form. Did you feel a little bit at pain about that? Did you feel like I'm selling out a little bit, or hey, listen, I can do this, I can be more successful in the short term, and then hey, I can turn it into a longer novel when I want?
I definitely never thought of it as selling out. What I looked at it was I'm going to get paid to write this idea into a full idea, because even if a novel would be longer and more intricate and you'd have to build more things in with character development and subplots and stuff, I was basically getting paid to work an idea up into a complete story or a complete book. And then, most writers have to do that part for free.
Gotcha. Yeah. The reason why I said selling out was, when you hear from bands in the 80s, and especially the ones that weren't so successful, and they say, oh, we're not commercial, which means nobody really wanted to listen to them. But you were content, and you did it smartly, because you said, okay, you looked at it and said, it's going to be difficult to get your own book published. But that was back then, was it? How long ago was that, Nicola?
The first one would have been I think I got the deal in about 2011.
Okay.
And I think it was published in 2013. I mean, the process is long with these things, very long.
Mm. And where was self-publishing at that stage?
It was starting, but it certainly wasn't the thing that you first thought of, and definitely not in ELT. I mean, I hear people talking about self-publishing graded readers, and I think they're going to be hard to distribute. How are students going to find out about your book? And there are platforms now where hopefully they're doing a good job of marketing the platform itself, and then people will find your books because they've heard of the platform. But self-publishing was earlier, but it was about that time that 50 Shades of Grey hit the big time, and that had been a self-published book before that. But I think she did get a small publishing deal off the back of the stuff that she was putting online, and then she got a bigger publishing deal, and that's when everybody really started to hear about it. So it was there, but it wasn't your default, whereas I think now it is a lot of people's default.
Okay, and if it was, do you think your path would have been different? You would have gone down the self-publishing route for your own novels?
No, because I still think that's a very hard way to get audience for your fiction, because there are millions of books out there, and unless you are really savvy with marketing, or you've got a big platform, or you're extremely lucky, it's hard to get your book noticed. And plus, I can't get away from the thing of just, you want a publisher, you want that seal of approval, that thing that says, yes, you have the magic fairy dust. And it's very hard to not want that.
Okay. So you moving on a little bit. So you were writing graded readers, things were going well. What other, what would say, streams of revenue? What other gigs were you involved in, or jobs? Was this your full time and only?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I just, from graded readers, I got an agent for ELT, who was kind of the only agent for ELT at the time, and didn't stay in that game for that long, because the ELT publishing industry doesn't really work like the wider book industry. But that helped me get a few little jobs writing just wider bits and pieces for course books. I wrote a speaking skills book for Collins, which was completely mine, that had my name on it. And it wasn't a textbook, but it was a self-study book. And I was thought that would be the stepping stone to, writing course books and stuff. And it just wasn't, because the industry changed. They started doing things where they would have a team of authors and nobody would have their name on it. Or quite often I've written things that have got some famous author's name on. Maybe it was the reprint of the book and they didn't write it. And I've been called in to rewrite the work of authors who were bigger names but hadn't done a good enough job. There is so much ghostwriting that goes on, and people haven't got a clue. But it's not the case now where you can really, I don't know, have your name on the front cover of a book and it will sell millions all over the world, and that will be you minted for life with houses around the world. Like that's not how that industry works now. So you just a team of writers, you get paid by the project, and if you're really savvy, you negotiate a good fee for yourself. And a lot of us don't manage to negotiate good fees for ourselves because there's a lot of work that's done through packages now. So that's a middleman between you and the publisher, and that agency goes and hires all the writers, and I have been paid extremely badly by packages. I won't work for them anymore.
Okay, so it's all changed for the publishing industry, and just in case the listeners think you're is a bit of hyperbole there, if you're joking a little bit about houses around the world. I've heard of one particular individual. I hope that's vague enough. Is they were able to purchase quite a number of houses actually from a publication. So back in the day, that was the reality for some people.
Yeah, definitely, and it's definitely not like that now.
Unfortunately, and our publisher, well, we can't speak for all publishers here, but from what I hear, 5-10 years ago, they began phasing out royalties. Is that still the case? Are royalties still being paid by publishers to some writers?
I think there are still some royalties things going on, but it's become a much less attractive prospect because there are so many books on the market and you're completely dependent on the publisher's efforts to market that book, or maybe they were relying on being taken up by a public education ministry in whatever country, and then that falls through. So you can end up on royalties and no money, but the royalties deals are just fewer and further between because they just don't want the hassle of authors having the rights to their stuff.
Yeah, it's messy. And about the publishing industry in general, it's come under pressure, of course, from technology, and self-publishing. I don't know if that's really hit them. And then, of course, online with online resources. Where is publishing now? Is there still a market for your printed book, and always will be, or will it die a slow death in the coming decades?
It's harder for me to say from perspective because I don't teach in schools anymore, and so it's hard for me to say how much of a school's business is now done online versus in person, and the pandemic affected that. And is that a blip and people will rush back to physical and face-to-face everything? I'm not sure, and I'm not really the person to know, I don't think. But digital stuff's definitely not going anywhere, but I can't believe that print doesn't go anywhere, really. People like to have a book to write in.
Certainly, and in some cultures more so. I mean, here in Japan is, I've often said to people here in the podcast and further afield is that, even on the TV, they like very analog things to make presentations. They'll use cardboard cutouts and peel away screens. They don't generally go for the digital. It's all very analog, all very hands-on. So, yeah, a lot of cultures are like that. Here in Japan, people like a physical book, and I don't think that's going to go anywhere in the short term. And of course, for countries that don't have the same access to Wi-Fi and technology, that's always going to be part of the business, I think. But I hope I can interview some other people on this subject in the future. So moving on anyway, Nicola, so you were working and things were, not satisfactory money-wise. And what happened next?
Well, I was also doing like magazine articles and things for various whoever people would ask me like, what do you write? And I'd say whatever I can get paid for. And so, travel, parenting, food, just anything that I thought I could sell. And that process is quite soul destroying because you spend a lot of time pitching to editors, following up your pitch, then going through their payment system for one article that was going to earn you $150, stuff like that. So I just, the number of, and then the pandemic happened as well. But so work just kind of got more scarce because a lot of magazines folded or just did everything in house. So work was kind of becoming scarcer, but it wasn't really anything to do with that. The pandemic really made me reflect, like it did a lot of people, just what am I doing? The thing that I did because I loved it has now turned into this just transaction. And I had savings and I wasn't doing anything with them. And I didn't know what to do with them because, nobody had ever taught me what I could do with them. I had them in premium bonds in the UK, which is a government protected thing. But it's basically like it's bank account, and every pound that's in there is like a little lottery ticket, and they do a draw every month. And you might win $1 million, but in all likelihood, you'll win nothing. And if you do win something, it's probably just £25. So I knew it wasn't a good place to have money, but I literally have no idea what else to do. And I started asking people around me, friends and family, if they'd be interested in maybe buying a house, buying a flat together. A shoebox would have been the only thing I could have afforded because I had enough money to put down a deposit, but there's no way anyone was going to give me a mortgage in the country I live or at home. And so everybody that I asked said no, which I understand. But at the time, it was just, I've got no other way to go. And I just started asking, what can I do apart from that? And that just turned into learning about investing, which had been it's certainly not something I knew anything about, not even vaguely. I had no idea, which I think is basically the situation that most people in ELT are in. They have no idea. So I can really relate to that. But I just started learning and then I got really into it. I found various places to put my own savings, but I got really interested in it. And I thought, well, maybe finance is what I should be doing. Maybe I should go back to university and do a finance degree. But I've got 2 young children. I would have had to have done a degree like that part-time. It would have taken me, 6 years or something like that. And I'd have had to have worked at the same time. And that just wasn't viable. And at the end of a degree in finance, I would have come out and been trying to compete with 22-year-olds straight out of university for jobs where you work like 15-hour days. So that was just not an option. And then I just thought, well, what is my skill set? And my skill set is creating material for education. So why don't I teach other people to invest? So that's where the idea came from. And I just realized, nobody knows anything, just like I didn't.
Okay, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I think, you really pointed out something relevant for ELT teachers is that, for a lot of people, and especially now with the pandemic, they're living precarious existence, aren't they? What is 0-hour contracts maybe in the UK and, let's say short-term contracts. Also living abroad is, how do you negotiate or navigate, double taxation treaties and pensions and, what you're entitled to in whichever country you've lived in. So, going through those things, we'll go into a little bit more the nitty gritty of your course and who it's aimed at and who it can help. But just focusing on those things there. So things like living abroad, as many ELT teachers do. What are the challenges with finance, savings and pensions?
Well, for a start, the pension one is that most people don't have a workplace pension. If you work in ELT, I never worked for a language school that had anything like that. If you are a freelancer, then obviously you don't have anything like that. If you're a freelance editor or writer or any of the other things in publishing, you don't have anything like that. So, pension, first of all, you think it's boring, and in a way it is, I suppose. but only if having free money is boring. So first and I think there becomes this mindset of just, well, oh, that's boring, and I live a much more exciting life doing, I've got total freedom about my location and things like that. And so even if you did get past that and think, I want to learn about this, you would have to tackle it in the country where you are living. And if you're moving around all the time, how do you do that? It just isn't applicable to most people's context. And so you can go, and I started looking at, the national insurance, how in my own country, in the UK, what had I contributed into that system already? Should I top up my payments? I did a little bit of investigating with that, sorted that out. But I think I'm going to get about £60 a week from that. So that's the challenge. Your home system's not really probably going to help you. The public system, the one where you are living temporarily, is probably not going to add up for you either. So you really need to take matters into your own, and you wouldn't know where do you start if that's your aim.
Okay, and for a lot of people, we remember being told in our 20s to think about our pensions, don't we? And now we're not in our 20s anymore. So for people maybe in ELT, and getting older does focus the mind, of course. So where would you advise for? It's going to be a difficult question. It's so many variables, so many different countries, but where would you advise people to, let's say, using the word audit, to have an audit of their lives and their finances? Where should people start? Is it just honesty and sitting down and getting to, you've got a couple of barriers, isn't one is boredom, and the second is reality, isn't it? Some people don't want to face financial reality.
Yes. I think the first thing to do is just to realize that you do not want to be working till you die. And once you realize that, because I used to say that, people would say, oh, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I suppose I'll be working till I die. And I think I pretended to myself that was okay. But it's not okay. And you won't want to work till you die, and you might not be able to work till you die. So I think it's, first of all, realize that. And second, realize there are so many things you can do to give yourself money that you haven't had to earn. And I think because most people are really happy with the idea of getting money for nothing, except for if you're going to say, but what about investing in pensions, which is basically just getting money for nothing. So there's a real block there. And I think that people need to, once they've accepted that there's a question to ask about it, the second is just to go, what are my blocks about this? Why am I against this idea? And is it because I don't want to think about old age and death? And if it is, I mean, I have that fear too. I don't like thinking about it. So I don't think of investing in terms of my pension. I just think of it as, how much free money can I earn for myself? What part of that money am I going to take now? And what part of that money is going to wait until later? And I don't think of it in terms of pensions. And in fact, I have very little contribution into what you would call a traditional pension thing.
Yeah, so nobody likes looking at death in the face, do they? I mean, maybe Nicola, you should have studied a little bit more stoicism in university. I don't know, but that's something we all have to grapple with. But tell me, so you sit down, yet you look at yourself and your finances, and where you are, whether they be, whatever state they be in, but also it's the fact of our conditioning and our upbringing, isn't it? I mean,
yes.
I don't know about you. I think I talked to Rachel Roberts about this quite a while back, is that I referenced, what was it, BBC documentary around that time, this maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, where parents and actually there's an education program in the schools where the students were asked, I think there were maybe 8, 10, 12-year-olds were asked to sit down and talk about the finances, and their parents were encouraged to talk to them about finances. I don't know about you, but that never happened when I was growing up.
My mum still refuses to invest any money. Even though she'll say, oh, I'm really proud of what you're achieving, she won't let me give her any advice about investing. So, she certainly never taught me about it. And there was nothing at school. And I think if you want to go down the conspiracy route, it's because rich people do not want normal people learning that you can make free money for doing nothing, because we would all stop working at 45. If you are in your 20s and you start putting not even a great deal of money aside, you can retire a millionaire. That's how the maths works. Nobody wants us to know that.
And it's also the fetish of work, isn't it? And productivity and not seen to be idle, isn't it? And as you say, working till you drop.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing
these
is,
toxic ideas.
when you, yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of people who at the same time believe that universal basic income is a great idea. And I think that, I would say TEFL people are the kind of people that embrace that concept, even if they don't really believe it's necessarily going to happen, because it's a kind of rebellion, isn't it? It's against the system. And I think a lot of TEFL teachers are rebelling against I'm not going to be a corporate drone, and I'm not going to work 15-hour days for the man and all of that stuff. And they go off and have all this freedom, but they end up just as badly trapped by lack of money. So they will work till they die and be badly paid for that work and work really unsociable hours a lot of the time. I mean, how long do you want to work a split shift for? But if you start, I mean, I think it'd be very hard to talk to 20-year-old TEFL teachers who don't really know how long they're going to stay in it about this. But if they start investing just a little bit of money, they can be millionaires by the time they're 60 with very little effort.
And it's not just that, as you get older, obviously your powers weaken, as we're all feeling from year to year. But it's the fact also that as there's ageism, isn't there? In certain countries, you can't be hired for certain gigs. I noticed myself once I started going over 40, 45 is, you're no longer attractive as an employee. That's just a fact.
And you think you're going to work till you die, but it's only if somebody will hire you. And okay, as a freelance writer, I always just thought I can generate my own money. I create things on the blank page and I sell them. And I felt like I have confidence in myself to always be able to do that, which is very naive, because how do I know what my health will be like? But, there's lots of times when I don't have any work. But I now have a small form of passive income, which means that hopefully the more I grow my investments, the more I will be less reliant on that work. And the idea that people being idle, it means you're free to pursue the things that might bring an awful lot of value to the world and people around you, because they're going to be the things that you really care about. And if you want to teach and that's your thing, then you can keep doing that, but you won't have to worry about not having any money.
And it's getting back to the philosophers again, isn't it? The scholae, isn't it? The only people who could have scholae were people who had free time and they could indulge all, their artistic pursuits. But I want to talk to you also about, you brought up a good point there about ELT teachers, that as we know, ELT teachers, they're quite left-wing and they want to change the world, and all these things are very good, and sometimes they want to shout from the outside on the inside, and on the what is it, the elites, and they gripe a lot about policies in the UK and elsewhere. Okay, all these things are good, but what you're saying and what I feel from what you're saying is you can actually change things for yourself.
Yeah, it's completely, you just lack the knowledge. And once you've got the knowledge, it's so easy. I've just taken 10 people through the first round of the course, and I don't think any of them can believe how easy it is to do this stuff.
Hey, so that's a great segue into the course itself, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm just looking at your LinkedIn page at the moment, Nicola, and you have a nice little piece here on 4 myths about investing that are stopping you from gaining financial security. So tell me about those. The first one, if you can't remember, Nicola, if you don't have it in front of you, or maybe you do. Yeah, oh, you have it in front of you. Okay.
I don't.
Okay, I have it here for you. Don't worry. You need a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
False.
Yeah. So false, completely false. So I just did a little poll last week to check my assumptions about what myths people believed, and the top one were falling victim to was the fact that you need, they're like, I can't invest, I don't have a lot of money. So you don't need lots. Obviously, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out, but you can put in such small sums and still see them grow over time. because time is actually the more important variable in a way than how much money you put in. So you can start with, I've got a few different things that I'm in. They're not all stock market stuff, which is what people tend to think of as investing. And you can get in with €10. And obviously €10 isn't going to make you loads of money by itself. But the idea is that once you see how your little bit of money can grow, you start thinking, well, I will keep doing that for 20 years or 30 years. And you will, again, it's like I said, how much free money do you want? And how much can you get? And so you start with small amounts. It will grow. The maths just takes over, and it's a powerful force. So, which is compound interest, which believe it or not, Einstein talked about. And we all know this, theory of relativity. We sort of know, maybe we can quote it, never used it in any practical sense. But Einstein also said that compound interest was the eighth wonder of the world. Why are we not learning about that at school?
Okay, and the next one is investing is risky, and you said not necessarily.
Yeah. So anybody who's been following news recently will have seen, all these people that put their life savings into cryptocurrency. They've lost it all. Some of them have, had health problems as a result of it, are depressed, are terrified. And that's what people think of when they think of investing. They think, I have to gamble my money on whatever it is, cryptocurrency or the stock market or whatever it is. But there's a type of investing that's broadly called passive investing, where you just take on a little bit of risk, just a little bit. And you take on that little bit of risk over a very long period of time. And so that decreases the risk even further. And so, again, once people see that and you've explained it to them and you've shown them, look, these are the things that you can do that fall into that category. And these are the other ones that I would call gambling, that I would call speculating. And that's the cryptocurrency. And that's the buying shares in Tesla because Elon Musk tweeted, and you think that it's going to just, get even bigger than it was before. That's the stuff that you want to stay away from, because that is really risky. But following the general trends of the market, the risk would be, if you think that the entire stock market and all the businesses in the world that currently make things and produce things and make money from doing that, if you think all of that is going to disappear, you're talking about Armageddon. And not just financial Armageddon, but just, everything's gone. If there's no industry, if there's nothing that's making money, that's where your risk would be. But I don't think anybody really believes we're going to be in that situation. So if you learn about risk and what actually is risky and what's not, you'll see that you can easily invest money without sweating about it.
Okay, are we talking a little bit about asset allocation, diversified portfolios, that kind of thing?
Yeah, basically, allocation and diversification are how you end up not being very risky. Just what type of things are you in? So index funds, things that are investing in the whole stock market rather than a couple of companies. Diversification and allocation, these are part of the 3 pillars of investing, and that's something that I teach. And again, people don't know, so just that knowledge transforms the way that they look at this.
Okay, and we'll go on to the next one. Myth number 4: investing takes a lot of time.
Yeah, so people will write to me and they'll say, look, I don't have time for this. I don't want to study the markets. I don't know exactly what they think that studying the markets is, but let's say they think it's reading all the financial sections every day and finding out what the current trends and forecasts are. And that is a certain type of investing, which is really trading. And that's not what I teach. So when you're not doing any of that, it's actually, with passive investing, you don't really want to know what markets are doing, because you might try to react, and then you react, and that's when you mess everything up. So you spend no time. I mean, I don't spend any time on mine. The biggest part of it is setting up the accounts in the first place, but they're no more hassle than setting up a bank account. You move to another country, you need a new bank account. You go through the process of verifying your ID, and maybe do a bit of research to see which bank you're going to go with. which ones are going to charge you because you don't want the charges and the fees that are applied. And then you open your account. And then after that, do you spend any time thinking about your account? No. So this is like that. And the most amount of time that I spend on it every day is a couple of my investment products email me every day telling me how much money I've made. And I love getting that email. And I open those emails and I say thank you, literally out loud, to, show, to experience gratitude and all the rest of it. And that's it. That's what I do in terms of managing my investments.
So it's almost as good as making a sale.
Yeah, I guess so, but better because you didn't have to do anything for it.
Exactly.
Making a sale is a lot of hard work that's gone into that.
Exactly. So this all sounds really great, and people are like, oh, okay, that's whetted my appetite here. I'd like to learn more about this. This kind of addresses a lot of the issues I have. But then, there are fears, aren't there, that people have? Oh, will I be caught for capital gains tax? Will I be taxed a certain way? How will, the taxman come after me? So what kind of fears do people have about investing?
That I think they fear that it will then be taken away from them, and that the extra complication that they're introducing into their finances will mean that they have to spend a load of time on it, and that everything will become so complicated and they won't be able to handle it. So there obviously is a tax implication to earning any kind of money, and it just depends which country you are tax resident in. And then Americans, obviously, that wherever they are, they have to pay tax on their income. But you just have to, it just means you have to find out what are the rules in your country. And once you know that, okay, I've got to think about capital gains tax, I've got to see how dividends and interest are taxed, because it will vary depending on what you where you are. And you just got to see, are there any things like ISAs in the UK, which is basically a vehicle through which you can invest and nothing's taxed. No gain that you take out of your ISA will be taxed. And again, if you know that, you stop having to worry about the tax implication. I live in Spain. I don't have access to anything like that, but I know, a little bit of checking, and I know what I have to pay tax on. So I think people are afraid of tax, but tax just means you've earned money. And some of it will have to go to the government, and you want to get as little of that going to the government as you can. But it's no more complicated than managing your normal finances. It just becomes, an extra line on it. And some countries like here, freelancers in Spain have to have an accountant every month because the system is so complicated that you can't manage it on your own. And so it's just another thing to tell your accountant about. So some people might have an accountant anyway. And so there's definitely nothing for you to worry about. You just make sure you tell them what you're doing. But again, it's not for most people. And I think for Americans living outside of their country, it becomes a bit more complicated than it is for a lot of other people. But for most people, it's once you've looked into it, you see that it wasn't that scary, but you've been scared about it, but probably disproportionate to how much difference it's going to make to you.
So tell me about launching the course, Nicola, and some of the people you got on the course. You don't have to actually mention who the who joined you on the course, but what kind of problems did they have starting out, and how did you work through those problems with them?
So what problems did they have in terms of investing? Well, people came, so I was only anticipating I'd only planned to have 8 people, and I ended up with 10 because the launch I was very not ready for. I just thought, well, I'm gonna, I've made my website. I spent about 2 weeks getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to make my website. I didn't know how to do it, but I just did it. And I thought I'll just share this with the people, on my own Facebook, my personal Facebook. And people started booking that day, or at least trying to book, because I didn't even have a payment button set up on the website, because I hadn't really expected it to take off quite that fast. I thought I'll just tell people about the website, and then I'll go away and finish off the bits that I need to do to make this be a sales process. And I just didn't have time, because people started contacting me, like people who'd heard me talking about it, because you mentioned Rachel Roberts. So I did her course earlier in the year to just fill the gaps. I didn't know about marketing. I didn't know about launches. There was a lot of business knowledge that I didn't have. And I did her course. And so I'd learned about launches, but I wasn't really launching yet. So I wasn't putting all that stuff into practice quite, but I ended up in a launch anyway. And just it sold out in 12 days. And to say I wasn't ready for that is such a massive understatement, because it's like when you write books or articles and you publish one, no one cares really. You might put a post out, no one goes and buys your book. Very few people do. And so when you kind of get primed for launches that don't go anywhere. And so for me, having people messaging me and going, right, where can I sign up? And I'm like, hang on, let me just get the payment button set up. It was quite a shock.
In a good
But
way.
sorry. Yeah, in a good way. But I'm wrestling with a lot of this stuff now, because Rachel had this quote at the beginning of the course that we did by Brené Brown, and it was I'm going to get it slightly wrong, but it's something like, what we most fear is our success, not our failure. And I just thought, oh, what a load of hippie rubbish. Why would anybody be afraid of success? And then things start going well and you realize, well, I'm not mentally prepared for this. I'm mentally prepared for failure. I know what to do with that. Don't know how to do with things going well. So I did have a bit of a head spin over it, really. So yes, it's good, but I'm having to learn to deal with things going well and not tell myself it's going well, therefore something terrible is going to happen. So yes, it's good. But I'm sorry, you asked me what problems were people working through, and I kind of went off on a bit of a tangent. So most people were just saying either they had a pension, but they just didn't know if they should be doing anything else, and they didn't really understand even what their pension was. And then other people just would write to me and say, look, I'm rubbish with money, and I trust you, because these were people that knew me a little bit, the beginning people that signed up. And they're like, I trust you not to, I know you're not going to sell me something. I know that, you've got experience as a trainer, as a teacher. And so, I believe in you, really, it was. And I was just like, I know I need to do something about this, but I don't know what, but here you are. So, and then there were some people that signed up that just saw posts and things that I put on LinkedIn. I mean, there was somebody who paid through the website and had already had her own pension things and stuff set up, but she didn't even, we didn't know each other. She just paid and booked, and she's learned a load of things about how the investments that she's already got work, and now she's making different, better informed decisions about it. She's really happy. So it's not necessarily people who know nothing and have nothing set up. It's also people who want to know more about what they're doing. It's also people who enrolled because their children are growing up. Like, there was one woman with a 19-year-old daughter who's asked her, like, what should she do about investing her savings? And the woman's just had no idea what to say to her. So she went on the course in order to learn what to teach her daughter. And what a gift, I think, if you can teach your kids in their 20s, you'll set them up for life.
Absolutely. And you were unprepared for the response. But I think you did really hit on something important. And that's what I've been, attempting to do over the past year, 2 years with the podcast, EFL Magazine, and the EFL Entrepreneur Conference that's coming up, is that, teaching is, it's precarious, as I said before. It's not well paid. So I think a lot of teachers have side gigs and they want to bring in more money, and they want the money they already have to work for them, don't they?
Well, I don't know if a lot of them want the money that they already have to work for them, because I think a lot of people don't realize that that's an option. So I think people are prepared to work really hard. And what I'm saying is, if you're working really hard, make your money work hard as well. Don't just save it up and have it sitting in a bank account, because then it's doing nothing for you, and you will have some money, but you won't have as much money as you could have. And if you're prepared to work that hard, don't you want some kind of reward beyond just the money that you can get by exchanging your time for it?
Yeah, I'm just thinking this is the kind of thing they should teach in schools, but then, you wouldn't be able to teach it. But yeah, that's a good point. Tell me a little bit about the next course, when it's coming up, and what's entailed in the course, how long it takes, and what the modules are. Tell me a little bit
So
about that.
I've slightly tweaked it. The beta version is the one I just did with the 10 people. I've not really changed the syllabus, but I've slightly changed the format. So when I decided to do a pilot course, I thought I was testing the syllabus. But what I've realized is I've actually tested all the processes around it and the format and how it's, all of the logistics and stuff. So the syllabus itself is kind of how I envisaged it in the beginning, which is partly about the technical stuff, the know-how, the what you can invest in, what kinds of investments exist, and what are the pluses and minuses of each kind, the main ones anyway, and mindset. An awful lot of what I teach, and I keep coming back to it, is the mindset, because people think you need to be a financial whiz, excellent with numbers, and once you've covered that stuff, you'll be able to invest, and that's it. And it's not the case. Your biggest weakness is going to be your mindset. That is the thing that's going to make you take unnecessary risk and panic unnecessarily, and you'll make mistakes in both those situations. So it's getting people to get into the right mindset. And so, I teach about a few different types of asset class, which is just what type of thing are you putting your money in? And then I teach about the mindset, and then I finish off with strategy, which is that's the really scary word, but it's basically just, what are you going to invest in? When are you going to put the money in? Where's that money coming from? How much every month are you going to put in? It's basically that. It's nothing like horribly complicated. So I'm going to teach the next one in September. It takes 6 weeks, and that's 6 online classes that like 90 minutes, and it's a lot of input, because the thing that I found is it was quite hard to do a lot of interactive stuff because everything was new for everybody. There wasn't a base knowledge where you could kind of have people reflect on the things that they already know, a lot of that stuff. So I've built in a couple of workshops now. So I've got one mindset workshop at the beginning and one strategy workshop at the end, where there'll be a lot more chance to really just talk things over and have people discuss things with other people that are on the course. So that's the main change that I've made. But it will still take 6 weeks, because those workshops happen in the first week and the last week simultaneously. And then, I'm around for a bit of time after the course finishes for people to ask questions. I want people to come up with their strategy. That's really my goal, is I want people to walk away from the course and have their strategy lined up, because it's about habit formation, and it's like exercise. You could attend a workshop or a training course on exercise, but if you don't actually make your program for what exercise you're going to do and when, and you go and buy the gym kit or whatever, you're not going to do it. And I don't want people to just learn about it in theory. But I think what I found is that people are so excited because they're like, oh, wow, I'm going to go and do this. So I think they want to, but I do think they need a little bit more support in putting the strategy together and going away and opening those first platforms. So I've built that in now. And I'm going to tell my mailing list about it next week, which is the first week of August. So I don't know if that might be late for people that are listening to this, but they will hear about it first, and then I'll just sort of let the wider community know about it. But I am going to run 2 time slots. So I'll run a European morning one and a European evening one, because there are people who obviously live all over the world, so they need to be able to kind of choose a time that's going to not be the middle of the night for them. And so I'll run 2 sort of side by side, and then I'm going to run it again November to December, I think. So by the end of the year, I should have taken about 40 something people through it, and they will all just start investing.
And you're being very smart with the time zones. That's always a headache for an organizing conferences. What's the sweet spot for time zones? So you're organizing 2 there. Another thing I thought of as well is that there are similar courses out there, but they seem to be very US centric, don't they?
Yeah.
They seem to be about US expats abroad, as are a lot of books on investing as well, and YouTube videos. But you're catering for a wider audience.
True. Yeah, it's completely true. And I initially started learning about investing from American sources, and I've now sort of gravitated towards more UK based ones. And I obviously know a bit about the European situation just because I'm based here. So it is broader, but also a lot of the investing courses, they only teach about the stock market, and that's not all there is. So, and again, I just think people have no idea about that. They think investing, they think the stock market, but there's more to it than that. And I think a balanced portfolio wants to have different types of things. So I don't only invest in the stock market. I invest in some other things that I teach people about that are quite accessible. They tend to be the things that also you can start with very low amounts of money. So, and I think the US thing, so it's quite funny because there's a thing called dollar cost averaging, which is about putting your money in drip, drip, drip over time. And when I started listening to the UK podcasts, and they were calling it pound cost averaging, and I just can't get my head around that phrase. So I have to, on the course, I said, I'm really sorry, I'm going to call this dollar cost averaging. I'm sorry if it's annoying, but I can't switch. So that's how much the US is the home of all this stuff, because their market is much more sophisticated. A lot more Americans invest. And I think there's a few reasons for that I won't bore you with now, but the American stock market is basically 50% of the global stock market. It's a major force. And you start to understand how the world works when you learn about that, because you realize, oh, that's why America's so important. But yeah, that's why.
Okay, Nicola, that's fascinating. And for people who want to know more about the course, are you oversubscribed for September, or are there still a few slots remaining?
Well, I haven't actually opened it yet. So okay. I'm just, next week I will email my mailing list to say this is open now. And then maybe a week after that, I will open it up. But, like I said, the beta course sold out in 12 days and I wasn't expecting that. So I don't know, will this happen quickly or slowly now? So I really don't know. But my mailing list is the best place to be to sort of find out about it first. And then everybody else will find out after. We'll see what's left.
Okay, and we'll put the link, www.chilledinvestor.com, in the show notes. And is there a link to your sign up link as well, Nicola? Will you be able to share that? I'll put that also in the show notes for people.
So
yeah,
it depends when this goes out. So at the moment, the sign up really would just be get on my mailing list. But a week after that, when I do it in the wider sort of world, then there'll be directly like a payment button and a sign up button and stuff on the website, but there won't be that at the beginning. So like I said, it depends when this is broadcast.
So today is the 28th of July. I'm going to put this out tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
The 29th of July. Yeah, I had planned actually to put something else out, but I'm still waiting for a picture and a bio, so that's delaying things a little bit. Nicola, thanks again.
Well, thank you. It's been really fun. I'm so interested in this stuff. I could talk about it forever.
Thanks for listening to the EFL Magazine Business Podcast with Philip Pound. For more great advice and resources, check out eflmagazine.com. If you found this podcast helpful, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. See you next time.